Thank you, and thank you for the introduction, as well as it was great to be here for the last summary of the last discussion, because I think that gives us a good sort of thought process on how partnerships are important, how youth leadership is critical, how we really need to focus on not reinventing the wheel, because I think this sort of work is on one hand and school is on the other, and in a sense the school to work is a continuum. It cannot be, we can't also look at work in isolation to what children are learning in schools, because that's going to shape their thinking for the future. And it is critical that we work with students who are in school to be able to shape their thinking about the future of work as well, in a sense. And also the fact that the school system is not able to necessarily keep pace with the changing demands of the world of work, means that we need to make sure that the school system has some of the key ingredients in place, so that young people can make a meaningful transition to work. um, so I think welcome everyone to this conversation on education, and I think specifically in the context of the pandemic, the conversation on education also becomes very interesting. But I think we wanted to focus this conversation more also towards the inequalities that are being created by in education, especially during the times of pandemic, but more broadly as well, not just because of the pandemic, but more broadly, what are these the inequality in education. And just to get us started off, with some data, we know that almost 53% girls don't enroll in secondary school, so there is a huge dropout issue that happens from transitioning from grade 8 to grade 9. And this is also when girls are getting into puberty and are getting more physically fit to work at home or do household chores, etc. And so that is a glaring statistic for us to reflect on. 10 million girls, sorry, 33% women do have access to internet, as opposed to 67% men who have access to internet. So it's almost half the amount of access that women have over men when it comes to internet and digital. And finally, if you look at the women in the labor force participation, that is at an extreme low of around 12 to 13% women actually participate in the labor force. This is of course not counting all the invisible work they do to make sure that men are doing what they need to do. um, and and so I think the fact is that this has been an unequal world, and it has been there for a long time. It's nothing new in a sense, but when it comes to, I think, education, there are these newer inequities that are being created because of the digital divide in particular. Because earlier, there were other things, mobility was power, etc. But now digital access is definitely a form of power, and in a form how the inequality plays out in society right now. So um, and and while technology is not the only uh, solution to education, at Quest, at least, we believe that it is more about self learning, and self learning can be facilitated in various different ways. Technology may be one of the ways, but some of the core underlying values of a self learning process needs a deep connection with self, needs an ability for the community to participate in the learning process, needs us to have intergenerational dialogues and wisdom that is passed on from adults to children, needs that needs the the factors that actually influence self-learning are strong relationships, a power that young people feel that they can learn on their own time, at their own pace. They develop the confidence in learning itself and not just a particular subject. So we believe that self-learning is broader than just technology. And I just wanted to paint that picture around, how education and landscape is unequal, but at the same time, self-learning can be addressing some of the inequalities that we have. um, but maybe to get our conversation started, and this focus on inequality, um, maybe I'll start with Nirbhay to really talk to the point around what are these new inequalities that are getting created, especially because of digital learning and digital age. How are you seeing the impact of this digital on learners, Nirbhay?
Thank you, Akash. Good evening to all of you. It's nice to see, though distantly connected. It's wonderful to see all the panel members. Akash, you brought in a very interesting point about the inequalities. Inequalities, though they are existent, I think with the changed world and with the digital world coming in, these have further distance from each other. I I would prefer to say that the gap has increased, men versus women, or boys versus girls. I guess if you look at the data, be it in the generic public interest, when you look at if there's a boy and a girl in the family, I'm talking about maybe low income or could be middle, the income levels. The boy usually is sent to an private, low income private school, where the girl is sent to a public school. Therefore, when you look at even the public school information data, you would see that 60+% of the children in the girls' school are girls. But one may wonder, saying that there's a huge, enrollment that's happening in the public school system. But you really, when you deep dive and see, actually the reality is very, very different. That means there is an inequality right at the family itself. Let's look at in terms of the digital divide, as you brought it in the right in the beginning. Who owns the internet? The first, I think, let's talk about who owns device in a hand. It's man. That's even the National Sample Survey speaks about it. It's mostly the men in India have the device in hand, and when it comes to internet, the access is more to the man. So therefore, the opportunity for the girl or the woman in the home is much low. Now let's talk about even the device when it comes to even at the STEM per se. When you talk about the science, technology, engineering, maths, when it comes to priority, and when it comes to even the priority at the school level, the girls tend to see some ways tend to seem to be falling back when it comes to career in the STEM education or the science technology space. But that's a space where you got boys or males supposed to be taking that ahead in the curve. So therefore, when I look at societal perspective, it's a male that's largely dominated. Even in public sector segment or the school segment, you've got girls coming in forward. But when it comes to actual, when you look at it, reality, it's not so much for the girls. Even same in the case of digital divide, be it having access to devices, be it access to internet, and be it access to having content. I think it's time that we need to move on and to having that inclusive perspective. I think I can share a little later how at CGI we are working around inclusion as a specific approach when we address our strategic goal around CSR. So that's about a larger perspective, Akash, from me.
Sure. Thanks, Nirbhay, and maybe the same question to one more person, if one of you can sort of come in, maybe Abhishek, to see if what are the kind of inequalities that you're seeing play out, not just in the pandemic but also in education at large.
Hey, thank you, Akash, and thank you, everybody. Good to be on the panel with all the Bangalore colleagues. I just realized all of us are from Bangalore on this panel. So, technology is making us connected again. I remember very vividly 3 years back, we were talking at Global Compact, and we were saying how much technology we need in education, how much digital penetration, is it like killing the learning, etc. Right? So that was a conversation 3 years back. I think the if you look at today, it's like a table stake, when it comes to technology. I think that's the only savior we had in these times. When you look at inequity, look at from the business strategy. And one thing I realized, since I also donned the hat of diversity at my company, I was looking at how many women resumes we get, why we're not able to hire more women, right? Because we do not have those women, girls taking STEM, or these kind of education at the early stage, right? So I think it's a perfect business case for most of us who are on this call, who come from this sector, to kind of have your future workforce aligned, and this is what the shares, what we call it, this the shared economy or a shared value. Why this digital debate? But I have a very different number to present here. Nirbhay knows it. We have discussed in the other panel. Um, when we were looking at our numbers in our online and digital classes, it was totally contrast. When we go to a school in Bangalore or elsewhere, you will see around 30% women, 30% girls. But in online classes, I have seen the attendance of girls were 55% to 60%. Even most of the challenges or contests we are running throughout the year, the winners are girls, right? So that kind of gives us a sense that the girls are they don't have much opportunity at home. They're busy with the house coursework, helping mom and all, right? Now, how do we bridge this divide, right? I mean, it's very easy to talk about the problem, but it's very difficult to kind of solve this problem. And I think none of us could solve this problem in the pandemic times also. I think we did our bit as much we can. But looking at the scale and size with in the India operates, it's really, really difficult. I had an opportunity to go to some smaller states during the pandemic, going to the roots, and I can see the kids are not doing at all anything. At least Bangalore, some companies reaching out to those kids. But places like Bihar, Jharkhand, Bengal, where I could travel, I hardly see kids are interested in studying, beyond the kids who go in public schools. Now, so I think it's a high time that, the kind of investment everyone is making, whether it's a government, whether it's all of us, non-government organizations or corporates, kind of look at a long-term future. And your investment on CSR for helping this, bridging the digital divide is going to help you in a big way 5 to 10 years later. Because if I'm investing in some of these kids, may not be they join my company, doesn't matter, but that's the ecosystem what we create. And that is what some of the developed countries have adopted a couple of years or maybe a decade back. And that's why you see the diversity ratio of women joining in India and tech companies versus what's happening in the US. So that is my initial thought, Akash. I hope I'm able to answer you.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. I think we're going to come to, how to bridge this gap. I was more sort of, yeah, but thank you for, sharing the problem that you're seeing right now. So, Archana, do you have any thoughts on how you're seeing the inequalities that are there and how they are playing out? Any quick thoughts?
Yes, sure. So I think, Akash, you have summed it up well, and it's been added by Nirbhay and Abhishek. See, all of us, we very well know what the situation is. And the starking inequality has become even more obvious today in terms of the pandemic. It's really brought the harsh reality as where we are currently. We were talking big things and all that, but today we know the situation. So I would just like to share from the Dell's perspective, because I think in terms of what's happening in the scenario, all of you are well versed about it. You all are the experts. So from our side, we are doing a little bit in terms of focusing a lot on girls and the women. So in terms of the girls, we work very closely with Atal Innovation, because the whole idea is that we want to foster science and technology among young minds. So we are specifically having a lot of programs around she codes, around girls, so that we are able to do our bit in bridging the inequality. Because it's everybody knows, when you actually train a girl, you are really changing the community. And my personal experience has been that the girls are doing very well. They are very interested, and we are having great outcomes. In fact, I'm so proud to share that 52% of our beneficiaries are girls. And even the same thing about the women candidates in skilling, when we are doing consciously, we are ensuring that more than 50%, or at least 50%, are the girls. So this is how Dell is trying to address the issue. And in terms of the current scenario, I think we all over here, we know it very well and don't want to spend time, narrating that.
Sure. Thanks, Archana. I think the earlier insight as well, that when we focus on girls, they are probably the most deprived of opportunities, and the hunger to perform is so high that you really see a significant sort of result of that investment, because it's also a little bit of the male privilege that plays out, given that they have so many opportunities. And when you focus on a group like girls, it really changes the kind of results that you also see in terms of their engagement, in terms of their contribution, and so on. So that has a return on investment, which is more tangible as well, while we are looking to break sort of societal norms around some of these aspects that you've touched upon, around careers in technology, STEM, and so on. Dr. Atul, just coming to you, it would be great to hear, how has your company responded to this current gap that is there, and the inequalities in particular that is being created in society and in education in particular.
So first of all, a very warm welcome from not a very warm part of this country. Based in Delhi, I think it's good to see people sitting in t-shirts and shirts. We are really, last couple of days have been very, very cold, in fact, here. Coming back to the topic, I think at Perfetti, I would have to admit we are still at a very nascent stage. We look things more at the ground level. And what we've noticed is that, rather than just focusing on the inequalities, pardon me, but we are not only focused on the divide between the men and women, or a girl or a boy child, but we noticed that, there is a lot of gap that we could probably bridge in terms of infrastructure, in terms of, introduction of technology, in terms of actually providing basic aids, which include books, which includes your dresses, which includes your reading, writing material. And lately what we realize, we typically work with government schools across all our plants we have adopted. And our employee volunteering participation is extremely high. I am very pleased to say that, our programs are successful because our employees at plants, at even HO, we go there, we associate, we engage with those children. There is a bond that has established over last couple of years, and we just feel that we need to keep doing something for them. So last 2 years we've also started coaching and mentoring for them. When you talk to children of 8th, 9th, 10th, they really do not know what all options have opened up for them. That you need to think as an entrepreneur, you need to think in social realm, you need to think on technology, or even being a teacher, even being a, there are 101 things which are open and available now. So getting them to, understand and realize all those things was as important. And to encourage, again, so we started scholarships. We said, okay, we will not only honor the toppers of the school, but all subjects, all sports, whoever is able to do anything in curriculum, in any subject, in any field, we will honor them. So we have a whole range, and we look at, for instances, sometimes in the government schools, you would not have teachers. Half of the time, when we go for our quarterly review, sir, English, we are unable to take. Maths and English typically are the, tough areas, or at times science. So we even provide short-term ad hoc support in getting them qualified people who could fill in the gap for 6 to 8 months, for a year. So we've been focusing largely on those areas. And of course, technology, pandemic has just very openly, bluntly brought out the relevance of technology, having a platform. So we had started introducing, through our NGOs, English helper programs. We upgraded these schools because they needed both infrastructure in terms of, basic lab, computers, projectors. So we provided them. helping them understand, read, write English. Basic English for children and for teachers is very, very important. That's what we've realized, because the teachers need to feel comfortable with use of technology. They'll only be able to, take the children through the curriculum if they are confident, comfortable. So, helping them understand the very basics. So we are focused on very, very basic elements, and we are still committed in ensuring that we take small steps, but we do make impact, something which stays with the child as they progress. So
Sure.
that's how we look at things.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point, that taking smaller steps towards then building your understanding of the holistic picture before you can really decide whether you want to scale up or you want to continue to stay invested is also extremely valuable. Otherwise, we tend to go for scale much earlier than before we are ready for. So I think that's great to hear from your perspective. Nirbhay, do you want to tell us a little more about how has your company responded to both from an the challenges that education has had, as well as the digital divide as well?
Sure, Akash. I think I'll add more from the larger education point of view, more from an equity and equality point of view. So as a part of the larger strategy, we work closely on the education, but we do have a policy which we call it women and inclusion as part of one of the larger pillars of the CSR, where we felt not just about the larger social context where we have less number of girls educating and coming, but even at the workplace, you would see that at senior leadership, you do not see as many women at the higher echelons. So therefore, the idea was to support girls right at the school level. So we do work very closely with the scholarships. While we work and provide scholarship for these girl students, particularly, that's more of a progressive and proactive measure that we take it. We also progressively looked at what could be those other elements that we can add it beyond having scholarship. So we do run a mentoring program that runs and supports the girl children, most of the school segment leading to the college. While when we looked at the college students, we also realized that's another piece where if a girl wants to study at higher education with the expenses required, we felt they are discouraged from taking such courses. So we do provide more so in the technical. That's where it matters for us more as a company. So we also provide scholarship for the undergrad students. More so, it's a 100% girls program that we support. We also looking at how do we mentor them more from a women point of view and girls point of view. So we also looking at more women leaders coming and supporting the girl students whom we are supporting more from a mentoring and scholarship point of view. We felt it's not so much about the support from the monetary. The girls also need this scaffolding more from an women going through a similar journey the other girls have been through. I think it really matters a lot in a girl's life. It adds value more from an how she can see life from a more long-term point perspective. One, the second is she can also understand how the family and the workplace matters for us when she picks up a career. So therefore, we provide such support as well. And now coming to the more so in the digital world, I think we also align to, as Archana did talk about the Atal Tinkering Lab, we do have a clear focus there. Given that we do not have as many women leaders in the workforce, more from a technology leaders point of view, we work very closely with the Atal Tinkering Lab, having can we do little more than what has been happening, more focused approach, having run as many programs. While that's something that we do at the school level, at workplace, we do encourage our members, as employees, to take up such initiative. We do run the International Day of the Girl Child or the National Day for the Girl Children. More so, these do matter. Having a clear-cut focus, even at the workplace, we bring in children from the low-income school or public schools to our own office premises. One, it's an elevating experience for the girl children, seeing something that they are not even visualized. It'll be surprising for many participants here that even 30-40 kilometers of the peripherals of Bangalore itself, or even Chennai or otherwise Bombay, the girls have not seen beyond their home or their colonies. So therefore, it's a wonderful experience. The second, I also I also get these vibes from the employees or members whom we call, saying that, you know what, we always felt this is given for anyone, saying that, the office is just 30 kilometers. We felt the spillover effects will take place. That's an elevating experience even for the members, saying that, what, the world is not the same, the way we perceive it, most of from a women point of view. So therefore, that's a wonderful experience for the girls and for the women employees. The third, something that really opened all of our eyes, was the pandemic, where we had physical space versus the virtual space. Of course, we have a wonderful the management at CGI. We could help. While this help is more small in terms of the large scale that's required. So we did reach out to some of the schools with 1,000 plus laptops to wherever there was requirement. We had members donating money so that we can provide them with learning or the learning software or the additional infrastructure. It was nice of our own members coming forward and supporting learning content, because there's a huge amount of learning content that's available. We somewhere felt an auto run content does not make so much of sense, because we need to have a teacher or a facilitator in interim. So therefore, our members came in forward, supported such scaffolding support for these set of girls. So therefore, when I look at it, it's more from a long-term point of view. How do we encourage and nurture the young children, young girls at the school segment, support them not only finishing their schools, but support them at the college level as well. Second, more from a mentoring point of view. Third, a much needed that's required, I think, more from an infrastructure level. While we have taken more the computer aided learning or the virtual learning, really opened eyes. I think much needed to be done. More the content that's required. I guess we can't replace teacher for sure, but somewhere I think we need to prep up, not only having the infrastructure. Me being an teacher educator, I think we need to enable our own school segment, the teachers, to be capable enough to take up the next set of challenges. COVID or not, I think we will have such challenges coming forward. I think we need to prep up, look at education more progressive, more long term. Beyond physical infrastructure, I think teacher capacity is something that I really see an opportunity for all of us to come collaborate and do more than what we have been doing. I hope, Akash, I have addressed your the question.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think that was very, very comprehensive, and it's great to see that you're helping a girl through her journey, and the fact that it's not just about changing the learning environment in schools and providing that support, but also the mentoring, coaching to be able to transition into the world of work. So I think that kind of thinking is really inspiring for us to reflect on. So thanks, Nirbhay. Abhishek, I think there is a question for you by someone as well, in terms of how are you sort of responding to this need, and specifically with STEM. So do you want to come in there just to tell us a little bit about how you responded in the education sector and your focus on STEM?
Yeah, sure. So I think when the pandemic hit, for a couple of weeks, I think we all has been taken aback. And then we figured out that, what is the segment of children we support, right? So the first set of children where they have some access to a handheld device, smartphone, maybe by parents with internet access. There are other set of kids who still have a basic phone, may not have a good internet access. And then the third set of kids, completely out of the, connectivity. We didn't want to leave any of them, because we're working with so many years with these kids. So we devise strategies for each three buckets, and that's a bucket represent pretty much any segment you want to look at it. And while it was easy for us to kind of reach out to people who have smartphones, we quickly kind of roped in our nonprofits and schools to kind of bring them together in a communication platforms. The second was where we can do some phone mentoring and doing a 30 minutes capsule every day. And the third was the hardest, where they don't have anything in place. So what we have always looked at is that the math is a very, very important component of the STEM. Although it's almost at the end, but we always believe that this is where we need to kind of encourage young kids to kind of take up maths as a subject, which helps a lot of things in an analytical scale. Your you're thinking beyond, what you can probably learn from, day-to-day textbooks. So we distributed this, maths, coursework and other related materials direct to their home, right? So we try to kind of reach out to each segment in it. Every week we are running contest. This is a master maker, miss maker contest happening. This is a pan India, and that's also, I think there are a lot of positives about COVID. Our employees can volunteer across India, which was limited to few cities. Children were limited to few cities where we operate, but we open it for the entire country, whoever wants to join us. And um, before we reach out to the students, it was very important to empower the government school teachers, because they will not have probably used how to operate a Zoom or simple things like probably operating a computer. So we came out with the Microsoft Digital Literacy Program, which we had 2,800 teachers signed up. These are all from government schools, and we help them to kind of take a month course and be ready with when the school online classes start. Some of this teacher also did online session with the Doordarshan and others, right? So I think it was a very, very testing time. We had some success. We are still trying on some of the areas. But what has really fascinating, and I repeat that again, is that I see that more girls coming to our program online, and that gives us, and that actually motivated us to declare 2021 as STEM for Girls as our CSR initiative, and that will continue for next 4 years. So up to 2025, we are keeping aside a large chunk of our resources for STEM for Girls program, and this is also aligning to our diversity. So you will see a lot of actions. Stay tuned to our CSR, LinkedIn pages and all, where you see every day the top video is coming and posted, and you will get more insight out there. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Abhishek. Archana, do you want to sort of tell us a little bit about, while corporates can have these focus, it really means that you need to work in partnership with non-profits and other stakeholders. It is not something that you can do alone. So uh, so what is your sort of approach to partnership with non-profits, and what are the ways that you go about partnering with them?
Sure. Yes. So at Dell last year, actually 2019, we had unveiled our CSR statement, which was Progress Made Real, where we have announced that by 2030, we would be impacting 1 billion lives. And it's a moonshot goal, but that's how we are targeting, and that's what we are progressing towards, to impact 1 billion goal in a period of 10 years. Now, this is not something that we really want to wake up towards the end of 2030 and see where we are. I think it's like almost we have started counting it from day one, and we have regular dashboards, and it's all about numbers, these corporates, and we have to also ensure that it's just not the 1 billion lives, but the one life in that 1 billion. So what we are doing is that in order to achieve this, now this is a huge moonshot goal, and this is not something that one can just achieve it by itself. And therefore, we are working very closely with the other corporates. We are working with Microsoft. We are trying to see how we can leverage their content, and we can launch the skilling project in partnership with Microsoft. Similarly, we are also having conversation with the other corporates. And when we talk about partnership, I think one of the very important partners that we mustn't forget is the government itself, because government already has this established machinery, and we cannot talk about sustainability and scalability until and unless we align with the government. So as much as possible, all our projects, be it working in the field of education or skilling, we are partnering with government. And we are seeing great outcomes. Any of the skill projects that we are doing, we are partnering with NSDC, because it also gives credibility to the project. What we are also doing is we are asking our NGOs to partner with each other. Now, what Dell does is that we have invested a lot in creating platforms and content. And it doesn't make sense that each time we keep on investing money with different organizations on developing that particular platform. So what we are ensuring that our NGOs, they work with each other, they collaborate, Like I can give you an example. We have worked very closely with Sikshana. They are one of our partners in Karnataka, and we funded an app called as Maishala app. Maishala app, it is a huge in terms of investment. And today this app, we funded for a period of 3 years. And today this app has been adopted by the government of Karnataka. And this is when we have stepped back and it's taken over by the government. It's an app which helps in the monitoring and evaluation of the school teachers. So this particular content, the app and the content that has gone in it, we are now working with other NGO partners so that it can be taken to some other state. Sikshana works very closely with the government of Karnataka. They have very good relationship, but perhaps they will not be the best to work in the state of Haryana. There might be another partner who is working very well with the state of Haryana, and they have good relationship with the government. So this is how we are leveraging. It's multi-collaboration. It's NGO to NGO. It's NGO to the government. And we see our role as more like a connector, I would say, because it's not that we would like to stay here forever. The idea is also that we want to step back and perhaps move to another geographical location, other programs. And the only way that we can ensure that these projects continue, even after our funding stops, is to ensure that we develop these partnerships. So these are the various ways we work very closely with NASSCOM Foundation, that they helped us to develop very good content all around the future skills. And we are ensuring now that these content which is ready, it's given on a pro bono, and even other corporates, if they would like to take it, because the idea is that we don't want to keep it to ourselves, but give it to as many as possible. So there are two purposes of this. A is, of course, it's helping us to meet our goal in terms of the numbers. And second is also helping that it's not giving us the feeling that, okay, fine, tomorrow when we step back, how are these projects going to be handled? So these are some of the partnerships, Akash, that we try to work, and as much as possible going forward, this is the key to scale and to sustain is through a lot of collaborations. We also talk about collaboration with corporates, which is really important. Though I would just like to say that it becomes a little slow at times, though everybody has the heart and the intent for it. But it's just that, everybody has their own grant cycles, and there are a whole lot of other, geographical location and other things that it becomes a little slow. I'm not discouraged. We will, of course, get there. And also, since Dell is usually like a technology partner, we have a lot of corporates who have also reached out to us, and we're trying to see how we can work with them. Is like when we provide our hardware in terms of the systems, in terms of the servers, and the laptops, the all these desktops, and we work with the other partners who can provide the content, who can take care of the operational expenses, because these are the ways that we can scale up. So I would also like to leave this thought with the panelists and the people who are watching, that if there are scope of partnership, we are always open to it, and we would love to materialize it.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that holistic approach, as well as the fact that the reality is that companies need to partner with companies, and that is important, and that takes time. But I'm glad that you made a start, and we are hopeful that that happens a lot more across the ecosystem, because that's where we are able to also pool our resources together for a greater impact. Dr. Atul, do you want to share a little more about your partnership approach with NGOs, and how do you really make your impact in this model?
Being a small fish amongst the sharks here, I think again our approach is quite different. We stay grounded, and we believe in executing most of our projects through our own efforts and own people. While yes, we cannot rule out the importance and the role that NGOs or your vendors and your partners play, but we use them more for providing us small facilities as enablers. For instance, Shiksha Dan, with whom we work, who have helped us introduce English Helper, who are helping us with these career counseling, mentoring, and coaching programs, who are helping us distribute scholarships. But it all happens in our presence. So we have not completely outsourced everything. We love to get involved, and because fortunately across the three plants, Manesar, Rudrapur and Chennai, people are very, very passionate and they are, committed to this cause. So we are always there. If it is celebration during the year, we typically celebrate 3 to 4 festivals there. Uh, Likewise, we have partnered with a NGO by name Trash to Cash. They house about 150 people and children with special needs. What we do is we just don't go and support them financially or otherwise. We provide them our unutilized packaging material. They've converted into gifting solutions and we purchase it back from them. So our objective is one to create, that feeling of self-esteem that they have, earned their livelihood respectfully and enabling them in their vocational endeavors. So, while NGOs are there, but we really want to get involved and we like to see our involvement participation. And that is how we derive satisfaction. So like I said, we're taking very, very small steps. We are still not talking numbers and impacts, but we just count how many smiles and how many lives we are able to touch and, see people bring those smiles on those faces. So our journey has started. We have another program where we are planning to set up a skilling center again, where we will try to purchase, provide them material, buy it back so that we are able to, generate employment, generate an opportunity for earning respectfully for whoever we get associated with. So that's how we see roles of our NGOs and partners in this whole CSR journey.
Sure, and I think it takes all kinds, and I think there is beauty in that diversity of approaches as well. So I don't think there is any pressure to do more too soon, like you're saying. So all right, so maybe one last quick one line response for all the panelists before we can go to maybe a few questions, is really what gives you hope in working on education issues day in day out. Change takes time. It's not a silver bullet. You got to keep at it, and it's a long haul. So what is it that gives you hope to in this sector, in working on this, what you do? Nirbhay, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So Akash, for me, I think the biggest motivator is the number of children that are want to access to education, keen to learn. First, the second is, I think, as a corporate, I think they're willing to push as much as dollars. The third, I did see an enormous support from the employees to volunteer in these tough times. I think I see more positives. I see more engagements, and I see more impact, while nothing beats being there and doing in physical.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Abhishek?
So I think work from home happens, but study from home is very difficult. So we need to get back to school for sure. So I was I have never made this point earlier because it's a little controversial, but I want to throw this up. I was just sitting one day, after inauguration of a school project, and trying to assess that how much government spend per child on a school, in a government school, right? There are a lot of data available to try to talk through. My personal assessment was more than 20-25,000 per child, right? And what it goes into? It goes into hardware aspect, means either school infra, teacher salary, etc. They hardly government have a money beyond that, and that's where we all have a role to play. Hopefully, some of this money, can be used to digitize, give them a digital, enablement for the coming years. And I think Karnataka has already started it. I think the government has very, very actively now for 5,000 rupees. I think a lot of non-profits have tied up with the government of Karnataka to give tablets. We have tied up with a couple of leading players. So I think that's where the hope is that this digital divide it is COVID will actually enable in some way to kind of bridge the digital divide and bring all of us on a learning platform. And I'm a very, very fond believer of Eklavya. I think self-learning is going to grow in what you see in our higher studies. I think that is slowly is going to. So I'm not not propagating about any of those big brands here who is doing self-learning, but I think there will be a lot of such small players who will be there for righteous help, and that's how we will see that. The private schools in India, the median average is 15,000 rupees, where the government school per child spend is 30,000 rupees or 25,000 rupees. Still, people are sending to government school, and I'm taking away to the private school. So that is a lot of a discussion point. I will rest this for another dialogue whenever we have government representative to talk through. So with this hope, I think the future is very bright. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Archana.
Yes, I think that's the whole reason why we are here today, and I would like to, touch on the aspect that Nirbhay mentioned about employee volunteerism. I think giving back to the community is one thing that didn't stop even during this time. We take pride that almost 75% of our employees, they volunteer their time and money and energy. And even during the pandemic, it has slightly come down. We are somewhere around 68%. But the feedback that we have got, that this is the time that they feel that it's not only the community needs our employees' time and expertise much more than before, but it's also something, the kind of fulfillment that we get, each time when we interact with the beneficiaries and the children. I think we get much more than what we are giving. So that's something that really keeps us going. And for us in particular, in terms of the CSR profession, I'm sure that for each one of us, is much more than a job, it's our passion. Because actually we are seeing lives being impacted. I mean, we don't have to wait for 5 to 10 years. Very much in our own time, on a day-to-day basis, I would say that, when we impact, when we touch on any of these projects, or we go for the inauguration, we really see the positive vibes. And I'm very positive, in spite of all the downs and everything, it's really doing very well. And it's really the heartbeat of, and the core of everything that one does, that the giving back initiatives.
All right. Thank you, Archana. And Dr. Atul?
Yeah, so program like School Chale Ghar Ki Aur, where our Rudrapur employees from the plant went to each and every home where children were studying in these schools to make sure that they don't lose out on the time. That's the kind of commitment, and these kind of things, really give us hope that we are there to stay for a long term. We are going to stay invested with each and every life. And the underlining part is, the philosophy that drives our CSR program is that when you lose yourself in service of others, you discover your own sense of purpose and happiness. And I see that in Perfetti, we are deriving a lot of happiness, contentment out of these exercises. So we are positive and very, very hopeful of the outcomes.
All right, thank you. And there are a few questions, and I think we just have 5 more minutes. So maybe I will just take one or two of them. So I think one is from an anonymous attendee, and that says that, if we need to create the right learning environment for a young person to learn and grow, then the support that they are given at home or by the family is equally important as the kind of learning that happens in school. And this is something that, we are also realizing that we can, at Quest, that we can invest a lot in teacher training and, education technology tools and so on. But at the end of the day, the family is a key influencer and decision maker in the life of a learner. And so in our larger design, there needs to be a space for family level engagement or parent level engagement in order to make the impact that we need to make. So any reflections anyone has on this point? Because oftentimes when we talk of education, our interventions are all focused on schools, but we may leave a very important stakeholder out of that conversation or out of the target that we may have. So would love to hear any thoughts on what we could do about it as practitioners, as people who are, investing in the space.
Yeah, so
I
Atul, okay, go ahead, sir.
very quickly, so if we were to have this conversation after 6 months, probably, and hopefully we will have some experience to share, because we've realized, and it's a very, very important and relevant point that has been touched, that equal, if not more, support has to come from the family first. That whole environment, the awareness that yes, education is more important than the food and the clothes that they are, trying to provide their children with. So we have something on our radar, and hopefully in 6 to 8 months, we should be able to share more insights from our learnings and experiences. But
Yeah, so just answering to these questions, right? So when I said 55% girls are attending in our online session, that means they have a parental support, and that parental support has come because they will be using, either mom's or dad's mobile device. So I think what really is important in not only now or today or tomorrow, that how your stakeholder engagement happen, right? So how much your parents or the school and other sort of community is buying to the whole program, and that's based on in times like this. If the trust of Brilio with the children and the parents and government school teachers, we are not obliged to come support us in these times, right? I mean, nobody's asking them to send their children to the online session. So I think it's very important that the parents are always a stakeholder in the program. So the second important point which I want to talk here is that how you are appreciating and rewarding these children. So keep some of the rewards, appreciation flowing to these kids on a regular basis. And every parent, they love their kids doing something better. So are you recognizing those, inspiring them, and not only will inspire that particular family and child, even the locality, the other kids. I have seen many times the five families have just one device, and they become so happy to kind of participate in these kind of things. And how your content is engaging and fun, right? Don't make it so boring all the time, especially on this. I mean, our own children are not interested. I see my kid sometimes playing games in between the online classes. So it is very important that how do you make it fun, engaging, and also rewarding for the kids. That will make the family engage as well.
Okay, so I think I'm unfortunately run out of time for more responses, but I think the fact that what we are really talking about is building engaging learning environments, and that could be at home or at the school. I think is an important point, and how do we integrate those two spaces where a learner can connect with the self, with their family, with their community, to make the experience more holistic for the learner. I think that is critical for any learning environment, whether it's school or home. And I think that's what we need to keep in mind as we design for learners in the future. And with that, I will hand it over to Presh the for the closing. Thank you everyone for this conversation, and look forward to maybe continuing some of this offline.
Sure. Thanks, Akash.
Thank you. Thanks, Akash.
thank you so much. Wonderful talking and interacting with all of you. Thanks.
Same here.